On the day of my dear mother's funeral, my sister-in-law laughed, saying, "I overslept, so I'm skipping the funeral." My sister-in-law had made my frail mother shell out nearly $200,000 for a new house, and then this? Holding back the tremor in my voice from sheer outrage, I spoke up. "Fine, but you're going to regret this, sis." "I won't regret anything. Haha, have a good one." The call from my sister-in-law ended. After the funeral, when I showed my brother something, even he, usually so gentle and calm, changed his face and said with anger in his voice, "Lisa, I need your help. We're going to drag her down to hell." My name is Lisa. I'm 28 years old and single. I have a fulfilling job, and despite being busy every day, I'm holding up well. Today is a weekend, a day off from work. I returned home where my mother lives after a long while. "Hi, Mom. Have you been doing well?" "Welcome back, Lisa. I'm glad to see you." We talked as we sipped our tea together. My mother is a kind person, gentle and elegant. A few years ago, my father passed away, and she has been living alone ever since. Both my father and I have always been concerned about my mother's health because she's always been weak. So I take the opportunity on my days off to visit my mother and catch up with her. "Mom, has anything troublesome or unusual happened recently?" "Well, there's something." Just as my mother was about to begin, the doorbell rang. It must be Stephanie." "Stephanie? Was she supposed to come today?" "No, not exactly, but she drops by like this from time to time. I'll get the door." My mother-in-law hurried off towards the door. Stephanie is my older brother's wife. They recently got married. She is my sister-in-law. I often wonder how my brother, who is rather quiet and easygoing, ended up marrying someone as talkative and pretty as her. Even though I find her unannounced visits a bit intrusive, I appreciate her for caring about our mother. "Hello, everyone! Oh, Lisa, long time no see." "Hello, it's been a while." "Lisa, you're still living for work, aren't you? You work in accounting, right? Personally, I could never do it. I'm totally swamped with housework. It'd be nice if you could get married soon, too." "Haha, yeah, maybe." My sister-in-law is meek in front of my mother, but from time to time, she makes such passive-aggressive comments to me. I don't know if she means any harm, but it certainly makes me uneasy. It seems like my sister-in-law is here too, so I'll be going now. When I said goodbye to my mother, she replied, "All right, Lisa, let's catch up more next time," and saw me out. I wonder if Mom's getting along well with that sister-in-law. She's not the type to talk bad about others, so I worry she might be bottling something up. I was worried but headed out back home. A few months later, I heard from my mom that my brother was building a fancy new house. "Huh? My brother has a decent income, but he's not exactly rich, right? And my sister-in-law is a full-time homemaker. How were they able to build such a house?" "Well, I actually helped them out a bit with some money from your father's inheritance." "How much do you mean by a bit?" "About $20,000, I suppose." "20K? Mom, are you out of your mind?" I let out a loud voice of surprise. My brother and I were raised by our late father to be independent once we reached adulthood, so I couldn't comprehend why my mom would give away such a large sum of money. "Well, Stephanie, your sister-in-law came over almost every week begging for help, so I just... And besides, Andrew and Stephanie promised to take care of me since we'll be living together. I couldn't turn them down." "Well, if you're okay with it, Mom. But are you sure you're not overdoing it?" "No, not at all. This will mean less worry and trouble for you, Lisa. I'm actually looking forward to this new life," Mom said with a smile. Later on, they built their house, and my brother, his wife, and Mom started living together. When I visited to bring a housewarming gift, I was taken aback by the luxurious house with its modern-style kitchen and bathroom, expensive-looking interior with pure wood, and spacious backyard. There was no way my brother could afford all this on his own. My sister-in-law proudly showed me around the house, and once the tour was over, I quietly spoke to my brother. Congrats on your new house, Andrew. Please take good care of Mom.
Thanks, Lisa. Don't worry. Stephanie will look after Mom while I'm at work. I felt bad about Mom offering to contribute, but we're going to make sure she's even happier from now on.
It seems my brother didn't know that his wife had repeatedly visited our mom to beg for money for the new house. I find him to be a good and kind person, but his oblivious side worries me at times.
Alright, just make sure to take care of her. You too, leave Mom to us and focus on your work.
Shh, don't bring up work.
Oh right, sorry.
After finishing our conversation, I gifted him an envelope with some cash and a standing clock. This clock also helps monitor health, so please place it somewhere visible in the living room.
Thanks. This clock is pretty high tech, huh? But it could be good for Mom and it looks stylish. Let's put it here.
My brother placed the clock on a shelf in the living room. I should head home now. Take care. My sister-in-law was busy on the phone in another room, and I left the grand house with my mother and brother seeing me off. Half a year since then, my mom, who had been a concern, seemed to be getting along well with my brother and his wife, and I was able to focus on my work, thinking these days would continue, until I heard the news of my mom's passing. When my brother returned from work, he found that our mother had stopped breathing. It seemed she had passed away alone in her room. The doctors at the hospital explained that her pre-existing heart condition, exacerbated by overwork, was the likely cause of death. Mom, why all of a sudden?
Mom, I wish I had come home earlier. I'm sorry.
My brother and I clung to our now lifeless mother, tears streaming down our faces. My sister-in-law Stephanie wasn't present at the scene. Brother, wasn't Stephanie supposed to be at home? And what do they mean by overwork?
Stephanie wasn't home then. As for overwork, I don't know either. Stephanie handled all the household chores, so it doesn't make any sense.
My brother seemed confused as well. Despite feeling uneasy, I spoke up. Well, first we need to arrange our mother's wake and funeral. You will probably be the chief mourner, Andrew.
You're right, Lisa. Can you help me?
So my brother and I began frantically preparing for the memorial service. It was crazy. The number of preparations we had for my mother's funeral, finding a venue, deciding on the plan, contacting people, and so on. Somehow we managed to finish the wake, and the next day was the day of the funeral. While my brother and I busily attended to our visitors, my sister-in-law was idly sitting around doing nothing. Stephanie didn't help, nor did she shed a tear. Despite my growing frustration with her, the bustle of the movement prevented me from confronting her. Andrew, tomorrow is the funeral, and as the chief mourner, you're going to be really busy. Why don't you and Stephanie go home for a while? I'll stay here.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Lisa. Thank you.
My brother and Stephanie left together. After they left, I took out my work laptop in the now empty room and began to work. Throughout the night, I barely slept. The next morning, the day of the funeral was scheduled to start at 10 a.m., but I met up with my brother at 6 a.m. to prepare. We were overwhelmed with preparations, checking the eulogy my brother had written as the chief mourner, meeting with the funeral director, and so on. My brother had said that Stephanie would come later, when it was time for the funeral. And then, around 9:30 a.m., I received a call from Stephanie. Hello? Lisa, I'm calling because Andrew wouldn't pick up his phone. Okay, and... I just woke up. Overslept. I won't be able to make it to the funeral. Struggling to keep my voice steady with outrage, I managed to respond. Alright, but you might regret it, Stephanie. I don't think so. Anyway, I know you're busy, but hang in there. Stephanie hung up.
Hey, was that Stephanie just now?
My brother approached and asked. Yeah, she overslept and said she's not coming today.
Huh? What on earth is she saying? It's our mother's funeral.
Just focus on the funeral, Andrew. I have something to show you afterward. Somehow we managed to get through the funeral. Together, my brother and I paid our respects to our mother's remains.
Stephanie really didn't show up. What on earth was she thinking? By the way, Lisa, what is it that you wanted to show me?
Sure, Andrew, take a look at this. I pulled out my laptop.
What is... Oh! What appeared on the screen was the living room of my brother's house. In fact, the clock I had given him as a gift had a camera installed, meant for keeping an eye on elderly folks or pets. I gave it because I was worried about Mom, but since she seemed well, I didn't want to invade the privacy of someone else's house, so I never looked at it until yesterday. But then I watched the footage from the past week. Here it is. I opened a few videos. My brother watched them with bated breath. What was captured there was the image of our mother being harshly exploited by my sister-in-law. "I'm taking care of you, so at least make sure to do your chores right." That's what Stephanie was saying, assigning all the household chores and tasks to my mom. From cooking to laundry to cleaning, my frail mother was seen to be made work to exhaustion. While my mother was busy with housework, my sister-in-law would doll up and go out. Upon viewing the footage of my mother, you could occasionally see her clutching her chest in discomfort and pulling out her phone, seemingly hesitating to call someone, then deciding against it. Mom couldn't tell us about the treatment she was receiving from Stephanie. She always wished for our happiness, you know. "Mom, I had no idea. Forgive me." Both my brother and I were crying. The thought of our mother was almost too much to bear. "Lisa, can we see the footage from the day Mom passed away?" My brother asked me. I haven't seen it, but Mom passed away in her own room, so I don't think we have any recording of her." As I said that, I set the recorded footage to the date our mother passed away. After finishing the morning chores, my mother was seen clutching her chest as she headed towards her room. They said she passed away around 2 p.m. The living room was empty for a while, but as we fast forward the recording, Andrew spoke up. "Hey, here, stop it, and turn up the volume." Around noon, my sister-in-law came into view of the camera. When the volume was turned up, you could hear her voice. "Hey, mother-in-law! Mother-in-law!" My sister-in-law was calling out towards my mother's room. However, when there was no response, she seemed to think my mother was not there. She then sat down on the sofa and began making a phone call. "Hello? Thanks for being with me just now. Ugh, seems like the old lady is out and about, leaving the house chores half done. Wonder what she's up to." It seems like she was calling someone she had been with since morning. Upon hearing the harsh content of the conversation, I couldn't help but grimace. My sister-in-law continued the conversation. "What if she's dead? That would be something. But then again, I could skip the funeral and maybe go on a trip with Daniel. I mean, opportunities like these don't come around very often." My brother and I stared in disbelief. The person on the other end of the line was my sister-in-law's lover. Wouldn't it be nice if that really happened? Then I could make up some story about domestic abuse from my husband, get a big divorce settlement, and buy this house. Then Daniel and I could live here together. So where do you want to go if we take that trip? I'm thinking... Enough. My brother interrupted. I stopped the video. My normally kind and gentle brother changed his expression, and with a voice steeping with anger, he said, "Lisa, I need your help. We're going to drag her down to hell." I nodded at my brother's words and made a phone call. The next day, my brother called while I was at home. "Lisa, she's back. Can you come over?" "Okay, I'm on my way." I immediately headed to my brother's house. "Why, hello there, Lisa. What brings you here on such short notice? You really should have let me know you were coming." My sister-in-law, who had come out to greet me, looked slightly annoyed. "Andrew called me here. Please come this way." Inside the house, scented with incense, my brother, sister-in-law, and I sat at the dining table. "What's this all about? You two look so serious. I do feel bad about missing the funeral." In her usual tone, I addressed my sister-in-law. "Stephanie, ever since you moved in, you've been treating our mother like a servant, haven't you? Even though she was sick, you even made her pay $20,000 for the new house." "Huh? What are you talking about? I did all the housework. Are you trying to pick a fight?" "Everything has been recorded. Just so you know, I'm actually not an accountant. I'm a private investigator." That's right. I had told my mother and sister-in-law that I was working as an accountant, but in reality, I was working as a private investigator. My brother was the only one who knew. I pointed to the surveillance camera embedded in the living room clock and showed her my phone. The video of my mother doing housework under my sister-in-law's command was on the screen.
What? This is a violation of my privacy. What were you thinking? Delete it now.
My sister-in-law raised her voice. I installed it. As the owner of this house, I have the right to do so. It's not a violation of privacy. My brother said calmly.
What's wrong with you two? And what do you mean by private investigator? Oh.
My sister-in-law froze as if she realized something. My brother silently got on his phone. Then the audio of my sister-in-law's phone call at that time began to play.
I might just skip the funeral and go on a trip with Daniel, and maybe make up a story about domestic abuse from my husband for a big divorce settlement.
As the recording played, my sister-in-law's face went pale.
No, this isn't what it seems. Please hear me out.
What's the difference? Tell me. When my brother said that, my sister-in-law began to make awkward excuses.
He's a friend. We were just joking around. I didn't cheat. There's no evidence, right?
But there is. I spread out several pictures on the table. Images of her coming out from a nearby resort with a man, being intimate in their car, and even entering a hotel on their way back. A clear evidence of cheating.
What's this? How did you get these?
You told him over the phone, didn't you? About where you wanted to go on your trip and how you wanted to spend the night together with him. I had someone in our company take these photos immediately. How could you do such a thing during our mother's funeral? As I spoke calmly, my sister-in-law began to lose her temper.
Oh, enough! What's wrong with you all?
My brother said, There's no way we can stay married after this. Stephanie, we're getting a divorce.
Fine, go ahead, but I'm going to take plenty of alimony, and you're going to have to move out of this house.
Excuse me? My brother and I exchanged a glance. What on earth are you talking about?
I mean, when people get divorced, the wife receives alimony, right? Now hurry up and give me my money.
That's not true. This time, since you cheated, you're the guilty party, and you're the one who will have to pay compensation to my brother.
What?
Obviously, you're a bigger fool than I thought. Pitiful. Just like Lisa said, I'm going to demand alimony from you, and from your lover too.
What?
Besides, it's for me to tell you to leave. Don't ever come back.
No, this must be a lie.
I handed the return suitcase to my sister-in-law, who just stood there speechless, and chased her down to the entrance. After closing the door, I gently patted my downcast brother's shoulder. And then, 6 months later, my brother's divorce from my former sister-in-law was finalized. She took it to mediation, but it seemed that mediators all frowned upon seeing the evidence my brother had gathered. It also turned out that she had been squandering the money from their joint bank account, so I heard from my brother that he was able to divorce her with almost no division of assets. After that, just as he had declared, my brother claimed alimony from his ex-wife and her lover. The lover, who intended on moving in with Stephanie with a large sum of alimony from Andrew, was infuriated by the alimony claim and immediately dumped my ex-sister-in-law. Having nowhere to live and dumped by her lover, my former sister-in-law is now said to be living alone in an old apartment, working part-time. My brother was depressed for a while. He sold the house and, saying he had had enough of marriage, he now lives alone. Seeing my brother looking so lonely, I'm thinking of introducing him to a kind woman I recently met through work. She is also a divorcee, so they might be able to relate to each other easily. With those thoughts in mind, I head out and work hard again today.